Welcome back to Live, Laugh, Love Real Estate, Conversations with Lisa Loveland and Kosta Hantzis. Today we have on a friend and an incredible developer, Belinda Negron, with Urban S Fine Homes. And we're going to talk about, a lot of things. How she got into the business, some of the trials and tribulations you go through in a development process, and what it is like to be in an industry that is primarily male-dominated, and how you compete. So, Belinda, thanks so much for coming in.
You're welcome.
We're really looking
Thank
forward
you.
to this
Thank
episode.
You
yeah,
for having me.
So why don't we start with just talk to us a little bit about what made you decide to leave your previous career
Yep.
and get into the stomach-wrenching development business.
It's funny. I used to be in the high-tech industry. I used to work for a company called Lotus way back when, 123, a software company, for about 15 years. And naivety was a big part of getting into this because you just, I started off doing my little condo and painting it and thinking, I really enjoy the creativity of it.
Yep.
And that drove me into thinking, maybe I could do this for a living. Maybe I could capture a little bit more of my creativity because it was fun. Okay, so that's the part what got me motivated to come up with a new idea, because I was in finance, I was in strategic alliance. It was a different level of creativity, but when I started doing hands-on and it just brought an interest of mine. So so a little bit of not knowing what you were getting into is part of it, because you jump into these things assuming, like everything else, that it's going to be really fun, and it's business too. So that made me kind of jump out of Lotus and start slowly trying like a condo, and then gravitating towards a building, and then understanding how commercial lending works and how I can get funding for that, because I was using my own funding. And then from there you get connections, and then you have hardships. And the hardships say, do you check out or do you keep going? And and then you sell your first 3 units and people say, I love your work, and you get that
I'm back in, I'm staying in the
reinforcement. And it's like this. It's not like this. It's like this. And it really is. And I'm just big on, because you start off and you're like, oh my God, this is so hard. And I have to get the funding, and then you get it done. You don't know what you're doing, but you're learning.
Yeah.
So you pay the price for learning, and then you sell them, and brokers start saying, I love what you did. And you're like, oh my God, I want to do another one. And then you do another one, and then you have a little more experience, and then from there it just keeps going, and then you make mistakes. The whole point is you hire people that aren't the right people, you learn the hard way, you pay the price, and then each part of the way you think, should I stay in it? Should I go back to what I was doing?
Right.
Is this right? And then you get that up, it's like an up and down feeling. And eventually, I don't know, I guess I had the patience and tolerance, and I guess the creative side, and the pleasure of selling them. Yeah. The pleasure of getting the deals, winning a deal.
Right.
That rush for me was enough to keep me through the downside.
Yeah.
So
I feel the same way about
being
at the
sale.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about when people say they get into selling real estate because they love people. I'm like, no, I could be done with people. But I love the process, and I love the win. And our customers always come first, but it's exciting to figure it out, and it's strategic.
Yes.
So for development, there's so many things that can go wrong.
Yep.
And having a team in place where your subs and all of that, I imagine is just a huge way to kind of control or mitigate some of that lost revenue. Do you have your own crew, or do you sub everything out?
Well, I have, every crew member is a sub.
Okay.
But they are the same people I've been working with. A lot of them, they've been with me for over 20 years.
Wonderful.
So that is the crucial part of quality development for me.
I agree.
Because it's not just about you. It's about all the people around you, how they work together, how they understand what you want as a product. Because my role isn't these people are all professionals. My role is just to make sure that the quality I want in the projects and under my name fits what the subcontractors understand that needs to be done.
Right.
So they work together. Everyone, and I have a project manager who works with me on, actually about 8 years ago, I hired a project manager because I used to do my own project management. I have my GC license that I got, and I would pull my permits and do it. So I needed to learn the process.
Yeah.
I've been
That's
doing
what we
this.
talk about too.
Yeah, you need
no other way to do it. You gotta do every aspect of the
You got to do
business.
everything. And,
Right.
and when I started out, it was a learning process like anything else. And I made all the mistakes everyone else makes, and I see them making it.
Yeah.
But you can't tell anyone that. You can say, "Oh, I think you're about to make." You can't tell. People have to learn.
Yeah, tell us what some of
Right.
those are.
I think some of them are not remembering your client. So what happens is you get so creative. Your head gets a little big because you have some good sales. It's
Yeah.
true. You get like, oh my God, because my products will always sell for a higher price per square foot. So you get a little bit of this, oh yeah, I have such a great product. You just can't help it. It's human nature sometimes. Right. And then you get slapped in the face and it goes, wait a minute, step out of it, Belinda, and because you forgot your client, you're thinking, I'm going to do more creative, and I'm going to bring more to this market. But it's really not about you. Sometimes you got to remember the market you're in and what your clients want. And you got to, and I definitely collaborate with the brokers. Absolutely. Yeah. I bring them in through the beginning. It's a team effort. It's not just about me.
Yeah.
And that's part of the learning experience, because when you start out, you're like, it's me. And not to sound like arrogant, but it's true. You're just like, wow, I got this positive reinforcement. But as time goes on, you become more, you realize your team is just as important. Like your whole team is important. Like my project manager, everyone's pretty independent. I'm not here to hold anyone's hand, and I want them to tell me no, or, we work that way. And so those were a lot of the mistakes, and then you have a product that you developed. I've had many of these. I mean, not everything, but I've had plenty of them in different areas that I've developed. One time, this is a funny story. One time I did a bathroom. I thought I was so creative. It was in the South End. It was a lower triplex. I was like, I'm going to make a bathroom on one, a toilet and sink on one side, another toilet sink, and a shower in the middle. So it's like a Jack and Jill it was horrible. It was absolutely the worst thing. And
Sounds like a good idea.
I had to suck it up and say, Belinda, you didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
And gut the whole thing.
Oh my God.
And recreate it. But you know what? I put it out. I said, let's just put it out there. Maybe someone. No, they didn't. So you know what? You live and learn. That's what I'm talking about when you think you forgot what the customer was looking for. So it's a process. I've been doing this for 24 years. It's a process to learn that. And now I've learned all that. I feel like I've learned that part of it.
Yeah.
And that's why the collaboration with the brokers and finding the right broker for development is really important. I want a broker who says, Belinda, that's not what they're looking for here.
I was just going to say, what do you look for in a broker?
Yeah. I need a broker who's a partner, not a broker who wants to yes or say, oh yeah, you're great. No, I don't want that. I need, Belinda, this isn't what they're looking for. This isn't what I'm seeing, and that I respect them.
Yes.
And that they're a good broker.
Yes.
So the broker is part of my team. And the collaboration is just as important. And so, those are some of the bad things that have happened, and you overcome them. And now, like I said, the plumber, electrician, everyone knows each other. My project, if someone gets in the way of the other, they're not complaining or this is wrong. They call each other. And the product.
And kudos to you, because that kind of leadership comes from top down.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you, guys. I hope so. I hope that everyone is more independent what they can do, and they understand this is not a situation where one controls the other. I feel like equally we're all part of the team. I just happen to do the financing part and securing the buildings and coordinating everyone together between the architect but my project manager goes to all the architectural planning, so he knows what he needs to do. So it's very conducive of making for a better environment for everyone, and everyone knows at the beginning what they're going to produce. So,
and it sounds like everyone's treated as an equal player in it, and they have pride in the ownership of their roles.
You know what? I work towards that. I hope that everyone does, because there's an independence, and I credit everyone who needs to be credited. I mean, people say, "Oh, you do a great job," and I'm like, I have a great team, and they also say, if you saw some of the projects I do, I'm really, it's really important, the design of them. And I know that gets lost. And I know that that's not typical of everyone in development. It's more like, bottom line, how much can we make? And I think I'd probably be I'd have a lot more money now if that was my major focus. But it's not. So that's why I went into it for creativity.
Yeah.
And that part I haven't lost.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And yes, I could have used cheaper materials. Yes, the brokers sometimes say you spend too much money. You shouldn't
But
do
you
that.
know what? You've been doing it for 24 years consistently.
Consistently.
That says a lot right there.
Right. And I just said, I know, but I don't want to produce. I'm not just about, and people are going to be like, bullshit, that's not true. You have to make a lot. I'm not saying I don't make money doing it. I'm saying that
You're
I don't.
not a nonprofit, no.
I'm not a nonprofit, but I'm saying I don't probably make as much because I put a lot into the buildings, whether it's my eye but it's also the materials. And one thing my project manager said, which was a big compliment, he said, I have a new project. It's ground up, 3 units. It's called the Mondrian in Brookline, right by the Longwood Medical area.
Yep.
Okay.
Underground parking, direct elevator access, fob back, all that. And I did it, not 4 units, I did 3 units because doing 3 units, I didn't have design review. So it enabled me
Gotcha.
to do the design the way we wanted to do it.
Oh, that's
awesome.
awesome.
Because once you go to design review, everyone has an input.
Right.
So you have maybe a traditional planning board member who wants a little bit more brick, and this one who's more modern who wants a little bit more this, and then you end up with a combination. And again, I went into this for design, right? A big part of it, not all of it, but a big part of it. I have to make a living. But so I went from 4 units to 3 units specifically so I could make it the way
You want it.
cohesive design.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing because, why wouldn't you go for 4 units? I get it. I have bigger units on 3 versus 4, right? But one thing that was a compliment is Matt said, my project manager, and he has done 60-unit buildings. His name is Matt Culkins. He has done so many projects, but one thing he said was, Belinda, I've never built a building that we have like a rendering of it, that it looks the same when it's done.
Wow, yeah.
And then I have a lot of subs that come who are European. Some of the subs that come, like the guy, he said, I've never seen something like this in Brookline so those are the kind of things that really make me motivated. Besides, the financial part, but it really makes me happy to know I created that. And hopefully my goal is that long term, it might be something that people drive by 20 years from now and say, that's a really cool building.
Yeah.
You know how you have buildings that stick out?
Absolutely do.
Totally.
A 2020
Yep.
architectural, nicely built, tastefully built building. That's kind of a goal of mine later. Oh, that was Urban-esque, or maybe they don't even know who it is. But the point is that it stands out for the future.
Then they like the design.
Yeah.
How has your design style or taste changed in the last 24 years?
It changes based on what's available in the market a lot of times and what I see. So like if I travel, I get influenced when I travel. I love to travel. So when I go to different countries and I look and I say, oh, I really love that design. Or even here, I went to Chicago and there's a woman developer. A woman architect. She used to be a landscape architect. And I just said, who is doing this? And then I looked up her name and I just get influenced by other people's
How
work.
fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you go down that river
Yeah.
in Chicago, I think whatever the river's called, but you go down, a lot of her architecture, and because she was a landscape architect, the way it looks, it feels very natural, like water or land. It's just the coolest thing.
Wow.
So I get influenced by European, I get influenced wherever I go. I get influenced by, even here, going to different places, like in New York.
Yeah.
The new Hudson, whatever that it's called. So
That
how
place
has
is
it
crazy.
changed?
The New York was the Hudson
Hudson.
Yards.
Yes,
that
yeah.
big
Yeah.
sculpture.
Isn't that gorgeous?
sail.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like a
gorgeous.
boat.
And I
It's
get
insane.
so influenced by that. Like I get the energy to look at different things, and I constantly search for ideas. And when I'm about to start a project, if I have the ability to do whatever I want, like no design review, then I could be super creative and different. The other thing is, I also appreciate the historic integrity.
Yeah.
So depending on the home and what I'm doing, I could do total restoration. So I appreciate both. It just depends on what I'm working on.
Yeah.
So it's changed to be a little bit more clean lines and modern because that's where we're headed in general.
Yep.
But I also go back and really appreciate the historic, and I could do both.
Yep.
Because I did more traditional at the beginning, especially in the South End.
Yeah.
Because it was more
The Victorian
Victorian, and we had the,
neighborhood.
the plaster molding, and
Yep.
I used to recreate that. I had a guy who would do that. But it just, so it evolves just like we all evolve, right? And that's
Keep
part
it
of
fun.
Yeah.
It seems like throughout pretty much what you're saying is like, because I mean, it's just like real estate. There's so many real estate agents. There's a ton of developers.
Yeah.
There's a ton of people, whatever industry you do.
Yeah.
And it seems like instead of you just being like, all right, I'm gonna do this building and squeeze out cookie cutter and make like this many units so I can maximize profits.
Yeah.
Which is like, all right, great. I'll make more money at the end of the day. And I might be richer and I could buy another car or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I could take my time and really have fun with the project and really do my own details in there and make it your own and have so much more fun. And then at that point, what's more important? Like you're having fun and you're happy with it, or
Yeah.
you're miserable and you're just making more money.
And it's your reputation for design and development.
Yeah.
You know, when you come out with a good design.
For sure.
I mean, look, any job, there's job elements to it, right? I have to deal with banking, I have to deal with money, I have to deal with, all those aspects of it, right? The building department, all that. But for me, the reason why I got into it, because it is fun to some extent.
Yeah.
To some.
Yeah.
I'm not being unrealistic.
Oh, totally.
It's a lot of work, and you're like, yeah, I got the permit, yeah, finally. You go to engineering, you go to all these things, and you're like, constantly going back and forth. It's costing more money, and then you get it, and you're like, hi, and then they go, oh, it's like a Columbo. Oh, one more thing, we need this. You're like, oh, so like you have to eventually get used to this.
Yes.
And instead
But isn't
of
that life
It
too?
is
I
life,
mean,
yes.
We are kidding
Yeah.
ourselves if
Yeah.
we think that we're this
Yeah.
or it's always an uphill or downhill battle.
You just think
it's
it
up
is.
And we just, yeah.
Just social media is just like the highlight reel of everybody's life. But,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
They think, oh, great. And a lot of people say to me, no, this is so true. People go, oh, I just did my kitchen. And I think I want to get into what you're doing. Can we meet? And I go, sure. But, it's not just having fun picking colors. It's so much. And I appreciate that because I thought the same way. And I think you have to start off a little naive because if you don't, if I told you everything that you're going to go through, you'd be like, I'm not doing that,
Screw
right?
this.
There's a
Yeah.
balance.
There's a
I would say
balance.
you've got to have, my motto is, if I'm 80% sure I can do it and 20% scared as shit,
Yeah.
that's the right combination.
Right.
And then you get to
Totally.
that next plateau and you have a choice. You can stay there and just be, queen of the pigs,
Yeah.
or you take that next 20% risk. That risk is enough risk to keep you in the game and not lose everything, but we've got to always be taking some kind of calculated risks in order to grow and evolve. Business and personally.
Everything.
Oh,
Personally,
absolutely.
too. I mean, this is where we are, right?
Yep.
And I realized when you have the highs and the lows, you got to stop fighting it. You have to enjoy the highs and just know, okay, I got to get a lot of energy out of this and positive energy because it's got to hold me down through the lows.
Yeah.
Yeah. You really have
it gets
to
kind of
have-
boring, I guess. Too. It's contrary to belief, but it's like
Yeah.
people always say the rich, super rich are miserable at the end of the day because it's probably just like, well, they've just been winning so much that this is just perfectly normal. Like sometimes you need to like a loss or like
Yeah.
to get kicked in the ass to really be like, oh, I really appreciate this, or I do really love this job.
Yeah.
Like I remember how nice it could be, or I remember how difficult it can be sometimes too.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
I think
tough.
it is tough. And I think it always is. I think when you realize that the ups and downs are part of life, like you mentioned, it really is, then you start going, well, I'm not so bad. It's not so
Yeah,
bad,
you just
right?
roll with it. It's
You
all
just
about
keep-
setting the right expectations
Right,
of
right.
yourself and of your industry, and riding those waves.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, because I've heard some of your stories, so
Yeah.
I just think they're
Yeah.
hilarious. I mean, everyone knows that development is pretty much a male-dominated
Yeah.
industry,
Yeah.
and you're such a spitfire that I'm sure you've given them a run for their money. But talk
Yeah.
a little bit about that, because there aren't a lot of women, successful women in your industry.
Well, it's interesting. I started out married, so I had a buffer, right? In the industry, when I started it used to be called Tri-Z Properties.
Yep.
So I started out with Tri-Z Properties, and I was married. So I was the one that, and it's like I'm not, I don't want to make this sound negative because it's not. It's just the way our culture looks at things, right? I just really want to make that, because it's not just men, it's women too.
Yes.
That view you as a role and view men as a role. And so when I first started out and I had the buffer, I always did the financing, I did the design, I did the banking, I did the finding of the projects, and then my ex at the time did the project management. Okay, I'd order everything late, all that. And so this is a true story. The second project I did in the South End, and she was the broker we were using. I'll never forget, she said, he liked to garden, and I'm not a gardener. So he did the front of all, it's a tiny little, the front of the South End buildings, they're small little yards. And so he did the gardening. And she came up, she was going to list the property. She came up and she said, Belinda, I love what you did in the front of the building, in the garden. And I said, thank you so much. And he looked at me after and said, I did that. And I said, look, you get the whole building and I get the little yard. I'm taking what I can get. And that's a true story. Yeah. I swear to God, I was like, you get the credit for all of this. You know what I mean? And I get the little yard. I get a yard.
Oh,
you want to take that from me, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so true. And it was just a perception because they assume that the man must be doing it and I'm just helping right now, right?
Yeah.
Then I got divorced and I took over the business and I changed the name to Urban S. Urban S meaning, I came up with this because I thought it was so fun. Urban development, but you can't just do urban development. And I thought, how do I make it more feminine? So I came up with Urban S, and then the ESS stands for Environment, Style, and Sophistication.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
I love
Super
that.
cool.
the tagline
Yeah.
is, I did this when I was in Vermont. I used to go up there and come up with different names. I used to go to Vermont on the weekends with my kids when they were little, come up with names. And then I was like, Urban S. And I'm like, environment, style, sophistication. Because I like
that's fantastic.
being cognizant of the environment. I like sun in the units. I like natural light. And then style was just, I like style, but I also like it to be sophisticated so it lasts.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be too trendy. But I wanted to have a sophisticated, warm element to it. So that was how I came up with that. But so then when I went off on my own, that was a real eye-opener because I had been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's just Belinda. And when I go to finance, they're like, can you do it? I remember one of the guys, investors, he ran around the back of the building because my head carpenter, because the team came over with me, and I just think he was just being extra careful, whatever, but it wouldn't have happened if it was a guy. It just wouldn't have. But I remember the carpenter goes, Belinda, he came around the back and he said, do you think she could really do it? And he said, and you know what he said? I love him for this. He said, she's always been doing it.
Aw.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so great
nice,
when
it's
somebody
true,
has-
but we're like
it's
so like,
yeah.
oh, that's so sweet, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for just being honest, right? But he said that, and he came back around, and they actually did the deal with me, but I didn't find out. It was just funny for me to think about it at the moment, thinking, I don't think they would have done that if it was my ex. They would have said, oh yeah, sure, we'll do a deal with it. But they had to double check.
Yep.
Is she really doing this? Because that's not really what. And then that's just part of my life. I've had so many other experiences. I had a woman, okay? So, and then I'll go off of this because this is funny. It was a broker, and it was in Cambridge, and I had just developed 2 projects in Cambridge. And the broker I was working with, it was an event that I went to, and he was standing next to me, and we were talking, and he said, oh yeah, this is Belinda. She has Urban S, and she's doing this one and this project. And we were at this big event, and it was their event, and the woman said, oh yes, I love the projects. It's so nice. So are you the designer? I said, well, I do that too. You know what I mean? I do a lot of the design. And she's like, oh, so you work for the developer? I said, well, no, I am the developer. It's Urban S. And she goes, but wait, who has Urban S? And finally, the broker next to me goes, she is Urban S. He got all aggravated. And she is the developer. And he got all aggravated. He's like, Belinda. And I'm like, I know. Believe me, it happens all the time. I'm just trying to be graceful about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't want to get mad. It's not just men. It's men too. And there's many more episodes. And I guess the bottom line is, you don't want to get bitter about it.
Right.
And you don't want to get mad. It is a fact. And I would like to change their minds as to understand that women can do the same thing.
Yes.
And do it graciously. And, it takes a while. It takes a while for people to see your work, but you almost have to complete it and start selling before people recognize that you're real.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yes.
And I experienced that in Brookline too. Like I would call some of the senior brokers and they wouldn't. They'd be like, yep, call me next week, or call me the week after. And then now I talk to, I don't hold a grudge either. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's not like
yeah.
that. I invite them to all the open houses. I talk to them now. It's just the perception. So, yeah, there's
And
a lot
those are
to
the hardest
overcome.
things to fight is the wrong word, but to work with. It's hard to change people's perception.
Yeah.
It has to happen over time and with experience.
And it has to happen without anger. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah.
Absolutely.
if you're angry at everyone and pissed that they didn't recognize you and they didn't do this, then you're losing the battle of trying to help people understand that the next woman who comes along, that they'll maybe say, wow, you know what? You know, she could be the next urbaness, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about me. It's about how people.
Paying it forward,
Yeah.
making a path forward.
And I'm going to say one more thing, and then
Yes.
we can move on. But one other thing that's very interesting, and this is where the benefit is, okay? Because it's not always a detriment. There's a benefit. Is men developers don't really like each other, men to men, and I hear them all the time. This guy's that guy. I hate him. He hates him, and I don't have that because I'm not viewed as the competition as much.
That's
So it's
a great
actually
point.
really nice
Yeah.
because I actually invite some of them to my open houses
Yeah.
and say, hey, why don't you come by? Or because maybe they do see
Yeah.
my work and they're like, but it's not hostile, I feel,
Yeah.
because I do talk to a lot of them. And it's not
I
like
can't imagine you talking to people and being open like
I
that.
know. Can you imagine?
I can't.
Can you imagine inviting them over? People are like, you invited the developer? I said, maybe everyone should start doing that.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid, you
Yeah.
know? So anyhow.
That's great.
That was a long-winded answer to
That's a
one
great
question.
answer.
Yeah,
No,
no,
and there were so
that was
many
awesome.
tidbits in there. I love it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the project that you're doing now you're about ready to go live on.
So I love this project. I love it because it's different, and like I said, I hope it leaves a mark in the future of design. But it is a project, and the name of it is called the Mondrian, because the artist Piet Mondrian, his art is very linear, and so the front of the house, the front of the building, it's a 3-unit building.
Let me interject
Yeah.
for one moment for our viewers. Where can they go and take a look at some of this stuff? What's
So the
your
website is themondrianbrookline.com.
Great.
And the Mondrian is MONDRIAN brookline.com.
Wonderful.
The Mondrian. So it's all one word, whatever. And
Okay.
if you go there, you'll see everything. You'll see the materials, you'll see everything about the project.
Great.
It is located, a few blocks from Longwood Medical Area, so it's in a very good location in Brookline. Walking distance to Fenway, all that. It's right on the cusp right there. So it's a great, great location. Ground up construction. It is there are a total of 3 units, all floor throughs. So the nice thing is you have the entire floor. So windows on like I said,
Wow.
light is really important.
Yeah.
Windows on every side. Each unit has at least 3 decks. So outdoor space, 2 things are important to me, light and outdoor space, because I like it.
Yeah. I like it too.
Does that make
I did
sense?
too. Everyone
I don't
likes
think
that.
that's one thing we
Everybody
all
likes
have
it.
in
Yeah.
common.
A rooftop too.
Rooftop and
Yep.
outdoor space, especially, and it just came about because I've always loved outdoor space. And I think it's so important for your living experience to be able to sit outside, whether it's fall,
Definitely.
a nice day.
Absolutely.
And so anyhow, I made multiple spaces, and yes, it's an overkill, but whoever's living there is going to love it, right? Private or open, you might have a family room, open space, and then a private one. Every master has a private deck. So these are 3 floor-through units starting at 2,000 square feet, and then the
a
top
great size.
penthouse goes up to 2,400 square feet.
Wow.
They are 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, no, 2.5 baths. One of them is 3 baths. I did a couple different layouts for each one, which is interesting. The front one, and this is because this is how I focus on how you live, right?
Yeah.
The first unit, the deck is enormous on the back. So I made the living space in the back with 2 ensuite in the front. It has 2 parking spots per unit with electric chargers, and then direct elevator access right into each unit, privately fob
Wow.
access.
Yeah.
So it's with a beautiful entrance. It's only 3 units, but why not give it a gorgeous entrance,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
real posh feel, and I'm working on the entrance right now. I've got everything else done, but that has to be really sweet. So I've been looking at new products for that, on the wall and something different, timeless as well. But The penthouse has 2 large decks off the front, one off the living, one off the dining, all glass deck. I mean, they're just beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And you're one floor higher than any other building. So on the top floor, you have extreme privacy. And then the roof deck is the entire roof.
Wow.
So you've got 3 decks on the main living, and then the roof deck, which is probably about, I'd say about 1,200 square feet, 1,300.
Unbelievable.
That's awesome.
So it's
That sounds amazing.
really,
So great.
really, it's just a very cool space. And, you know, there's bike racks downstairs. I mean, look, you get those, it's like having, I tried to make it like as if you're on your own floor, own home, extra insulation everywhere and soundproofing. You don't hear anything.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And one thing I do is I spend extra money. Like I said, I spend extra money because you can walk upstairs and stomp your feet and you're not going to hear. And it's just above and
Makes a huge
beyond
difference.
what the architect requires. And then in addition, I do another level. And it's just to keep it, because I made a mistake. Years ago, I just blew in insulation. It wasn't enough. You could hear, and when you make those mistakes, you don't make them again.
Yeah.
And so everything is a learning process. And as a result, now someone gets a really solid, quiet product. So
Wonderful.
really excited. It's launching in October. We haven't let anyone in yet because we're finishing it up. We're at the tail end. We have published it in the Wall Street Journal. Just for some pendant, we have some people coming in to see it who just want a pied-à-terre. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your
Isn't it
what
sweet?
are the tell the
Price
viewers the
points
price
start
points.
out at 2.6,
Okay.
and then they go up to, we haven't decided on the penthouse yet.
Okay.
But they're starting at 2.6 million. So yeah, and then I have a sister one coming out, and it is a different design, but it's definitely a sister to that one. And we
Okay.
just broke ground in Washington Square. Again, that will be 3 units, but the penthouse is about 2,800 square feet, and it's a duplex with half of the top floor walking out, and you overlook the city.
Wow.
So the
That's
views are the
amazing.
city of Boston.
Yeah.
So that's like off the charts. I'm
Yep.
so excited. You should see what I'm doing with the finishes, and the creative part is the part that I love to spend
Yeah,
time
you
on.
can tell.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know? So, like I said, I hope that these projects end up being something long-term. When I'm gone, that they have like a presence like some of these other buildings.
Yeah.
But whoever lives there, I think they're going to be happy in the space.
Oh,
you
I
know?
can't
Sounds
imagine
like
they
it.
wouldn't be. Yeah.
And even the kitchens, I'm a big cook. I'm really into cooking.
Yep.
So I design the kitchens because they have to work, and I get like the trays, and I make sure that, like I did porcelanosa for the kitchen cabinets, which they have beautiful
They have
kitchens.
beautiful stuff.
And it's all from Spain. And I did the master bathrooms in porcelanosa and the half baths. But, it's just the idea of the materials and what I used and the lighting. I mean, that stuff means so much to me. So,
Yeah.
So thank you for asking
yeah.
about the
Oh,
Mondrian,
no, this is great. And we're
Yeah.
going to have some footage on this so that the viewers can see it as well. But
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that people knew where to go to look at
Okay.
your design
Thank
and
you.
all of your finishes.
Yep.
This has been awesome.
I know.
This is so much fun.
This was great.
Yeah,
this
thank you
was
guys
really
for
great.
having me. This is
Oh,
great.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Of course.
What a great idea to do this too.
We're having fun with it.
Yeah,
You know?
I could
Yeah.
tell. I've seen some of the other, videos or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
What's the right word?
Podcast.
Podcast.
But
Thank
we
you.
make videos because
We
we do
make
the
videos,
audio and
yeah.
video
The
because we do
podcast.
want to have
Yeah.
audio's huge
Yeah.
too, but videos it's so much better to see the person's face too.
I agree.
And
And,
actually,
the expressions.
yeah, it's not
Exactly,
the same
exactly.
when you just have just audio.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want both.
You guys are doing a great job. I really I've been watching it all the time, and I'm like, wow, no one does this. I think it's great.
Good. That's
So
we love that feedback.
congratulations.
So spread the
Congratulations.
word. Yes,
I will definitely.
So viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you, Belinda. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we
you.
will see everyone next week.